Hello guys, it's Jonathan. We're doing another Bottleman video, this time on, well, answering the question, was Bottleman DX good? So, did a video like this a month or so ago on the prototype line, and wanted to do the same thing for DX before God Cap ends, because I'll make a video on that as well eventually. So anyway, just go ahead and get into the main topic here. So first up, let's go through every single mainline Bottleman release. So there are 16 main Bottlemans plus 1 fusion. Unlike last time, I'll be covering the fusion with the mainline stuff, because I feel like it was kind of meant to be like that, so we'll get to that when we get to that anyway. Starting with Colamaru DX. Colamaru DX, it's a very basic power type. Got the drive strip there, got these wings, you can push it on the hands to increase tension to get a stronger shot. It is a sensible starting power type, and that's kind of all I have to say about it. Moving on to Aquasports DX. While I do not like the design of this guy at all, it functionally makes sense as a speed type. You have rollers, and you have a magazine. You also have this gimmick where the legs actually tilt back slightly, which makes the shots kind of go up more a little bit, and then they kind of drop more, so you get a little bit of extra distance, I guess, but it's also kind of awkward, and I don't particularly like it, but it kind of just exists there. Anyway, want to show the problem with the magazine as well. This magazine is meant to hold 3 caps, but you could add on more magazines on the back to make it, longer. It's modular, that's kind of cool, but the problem, put a second cap in like that, but a third cap, it doesn't actually fit in properly. This can fly out when shooting, and also, if you add more magazines, it only increases your capacity by 1 instead of the expected 2. That sucks. Yeah, I don't like that at all. I feel like they should have probably did that a little bit better, but functionally, as kind of a starting speed type, it makes enough sense, I guess. Starting control type is Lifleguardiwan DX. What do I even say about this thing? It's has a barrel. It's a modular barrel, so you can add on if you want to, so that's nice. I guess the ears on this thing you can kind of use as like a little bit of a sight. I mean, it's a starting control type. There's just not a lot to it, but it is a starting control type. I can say that much, I guess. Moving on, I am going in the botch number order. I'm not going in release order because there were a few releases kind of mixed up, so we'll move on to Raidbrave DX. Raidbrave is a vertical shooter, of course has a rubber part inside there. You could use the Dragogina DX wings if you wanted to add a magazine here, but that's not really part of the main thing. The main thing is just, it's the starting a vertical shooter, that's all there is to it, and well, it does that, so another solid one here. Moving on to Docpepion DX, this one's a pretty cool speed type. You have the rollers, of course, but you also have these 3 hooks. You can move these around to put them anywhere on the Bottleman. Well, there's like 8 different spots. Mainly, you want to put it on one side and make a one-handed grip, so you can hold it with one hand and shoot with the other. Also, the trigger here is meant to be able to basically be quicker. So when you have your thumb in here, when you pull back, your thumb is pulling it back, so like, you can shoot faster than if you were to go on the outside, so that's kind of the idea behind this thing. Is just extra speed. Also, the one-handed grip, it makes it to where, yes, you can reload while shooting, and while you're shooting faster, it's actually a pretty big help, so this is a very, very good speed type. Next up, our next control type here is Earth Roller DX. This goes for a bit of a different angle on the control gimmicks, with, of course, being a literal control gimmick, where, yes, you can move. You move side to side. So when you're shooting, yes, you can do this, and I don't think it's the best gimmick, honestly. I think they should pair it with something else. I also feel like it kind of almost works better as a speed gimmick, personally. I guess it's fine, though. It's like, I get why it's a control gimmick over a speed one, even though Salafire was kind of similar, but with speed, but it is what it is. Yeah, I mean, it's okay enough. I don't hate it, but it's a little bit awkward. I wish there was a little bit more to it, but it's fine for what it wants to do. Next up here, we have Accel Leon DX. Another speed type here. The rollers, it has a magazine. This magazine has a 2-cap capacity. Unlike the previous one, it's not modular, so you have to, basically you can only use this part as a magazine ender, but because of that, there's these 2 special things that you can kind of take off, put on the top here, if you want to, and the head just fell off, it does that. Anyway, I'll talk about that later, the head. So, if I could remember how I'm supposed to use this thing. Yeah, there we go. So you put this thing on, you dump the caps in, that's that. So the whole idea of this thing, of course, is that, yeah, you just have kind of these two large pieces that each house 4 extra caps. This thing has a total of a 10 cap capacity, technically. I need to take this thing off camera to fix it. So 10 cap capacity, that's pretty good. If I can't fix this thing, whatever, I'll just leave it. Anyway. Yeah, 10 cap capacity, pretty nice. It's a good speed type. That's the main draw of this thing, is an interesting and good speed type. Yeah, sorry about that. That thing just, the head on that thing just doesn't stay on properly. Again, I'll talk about that later on when we get to quality control, but it's a good speed type regardless of that. Next up we have another power type, Kerpeps DX. Very, very cool Bottleman. So in the prototype line, we had Blend Dragon. Blend Dragon was kind of a mix of Rising Milk and Fusion Black's parts, but it also had the added gimmick of being kind of, you know, a double shot Bottleman. You could shoot 2 caps at once. This thing is just a regular Bottleman that could do that. So yes, you have a long trigger to accommodate the fact that you can shoot 2 caps at the same time. Very cool and sensible gimmick. Just a good Bottleman right here. Now we get to Ayawashi DX. So this one, the long magazine kind of just comes in the set that I gave it to it anyway. So it's a 5 cap capacity, also is modular. Unlike the Aquasports magazine though, it actually does give you a proper +4 cap capacity. So if you have more, magazines on, that's what it does. There's no weird stuff where it only gives you 3 or something. No, if it's 5 properly, that's nice. You have the wings, also the rollers here, but you have the wings from Colamaru DX, and the feet as well. It has a unique headpiece though. But yeah, it is a speed core. So you do get the wings as a grip, but you can't add tension because the power type hold parts have like the extra parts on the sides here that you can add tension onto. This speed core does not, so the pens just kind of exist, but you still get a grip out of it. Also, you have a magazine stabilizer here, kind of helps to keep it up, but also this trigger, it's meant to kind of be much smoother, faster to shoot. I don't really like it, but you know what, they tried something with the trigger gimmick, so I'll give it to them and say it was at least a decent attempt. Arrowcider DX, another control type here. I'm not going to do all the modes, but you have 3 modes. You have the grip mode that's in now, you have a barrel mode, and a stabilizer mode, so that's pretty cool. If you have multiples of these things, you could do all the modes at once if you want to. Also, there's a control core, so if you don't have the barrel mode, you can just add a barrel on if you want to. Yeah, you get grip, control, not control, I'm stupid. Grip, barrel, or stabilizers, so yeah. Kind of all the main control stuff, but also this horn acts as a very, very nice sight, so helps you to line yourself up, which is pretty helpful. So I am a big fan of Arrowcider, actually. Very, very cool. Just very versatile for a control type, and in my opinion, the best one of DX. Next up here, we have another power type with Satan DX. This thing's whole gimmick is, it has wheels. It has wheels on the bottom of the feet and on the wings here. You can also add caps in here if you want to for design or just having extra caps, but I just leave them open. But the whole idea is when you shoot, you move forward. This gives you extra momentum in your shot, which is supposed to be a stronger shot. It makes sense. It's fine. I don't dislike it, but it's not that crazy. Just a fine gimmick for a power type, I'd say. Moving on to Colamaru Energy DX. This thing has the same drive core as Colamaru DX does. But now you have even a larger wings, and also these arms here with the springs, they just add tension by being there, but you could push them in even further for more tension if you want. Also, just a cool note, you have a horn up here that kind of, again, acts as a little bit of a sight. You can add the rubber pieces from Colamaru DX's wings, you can add them onto the bottom here for extra stability, and you can also add extra arm pieces, notably the wings from Colamaru DX, to give you a larger grip to make it more stable. While this is a very good power type, it also has a lot of control gimmicks to it, which I like as well, so it's almost like a dual type in a lot of ways between power and control. Very, very cool Bottleman overall, for sure. Moving on to our Greno DX. This is a very awkward control type, has a long barrel it comes with, you could use that. It's modular, that's cool. Outside of that, just kind of a one-handed grip, but it's a very awkward one-handed grip. I don't really like it too much, personally. It just feels a little bit out of place. Like, I wish this was a little bit further back personally, but it's like kind of okay, but again, I just don't particularly like this one. This is a bit of an oddball, man, but it is mainly meant for the fusion, so we'll come back to that, I guess. Moving on to the other one, Milkaiser DX. This is another one that, again, sort of is a little bit awkward. Speed course, you got the rollers, you got a long magazine, so you have a 5 cap capacity. That's nice. I already talked about that, though. The one-handed grip on this one looks really stupid, but it actually works better as a one-handed grip, in my opinion, because it comes further back, so... It's another one-handed speed type. Do I think it's better than Docpepion? No, but it's at least better than our Greno, I would say. However, the reason why these two are so awkward is to accommodate the fusion. Of course, being Royal Gryphon DX. So Royal Gryphon DX is... something. Okay, so Royal Gryphon... So you take the cores of the other two, and then you kind of form a third core in the center here, which is a vertical shooter. So you have the vertical and then the 2 horizontals on the sides there. You could have the barrel and magazine if you use the right cores. But the main thing is that you get a triple shot of it. You get to shoot 3 caps at the same time. That's pretty cool. I do like that, but this thing's kind of jank, I'm not going to lie. I still like Royal Gryphon, but it is a little bit janky to some extent, so I wish it was a little bit better constructed, but still a cool idea. Also, you could trade out the cores for different cores, so like if you want a second speed core here to get another long magazine, you can basically do something to where you have 5 triple shots with the magazines, but you only have to reload 1 cap every time, since you have the magazines there for the side ones, but then you just have to reload the vertical one. So it's a pretty solid trade-off there if you do that. Much better than the base setup here. So you get a lot of customization out of it, which is nice, but definitely a bit of an awkward Bottleman for sure. Moving on to Dragogina DX. Dragogina DX is another interesting one. So this one has a giant core, has a 4 cap capacity inside the core. They are vertical shots. You can shoot, it's like a 2x2 cluster of caps, and you shoot all 4 caps at the same time. That's something. Also, these arms, kind of arms, mostly just 4 legs, but whatever, and the headpiece, they look very weird, but yes, you can use them on other Bottlemen. They're not exclusive to this specific Bottleman, which is very cool. Like, you can also add other parts onto the core. Very customizable, very cool. Also, the surfer wing here gives you an extra 4 cap capacity, so you have a whole extra quadruple shot, whatever you want to call it, just ready to go if you choose to do that, so that's pretty cool. Very, very cool Bottleman overall. I'm a big fan of Dragogina. I like what they did with this thing. Very creative, I would say. Kind of ending off on a bit of a weird note here, which is Valhas DX. So Valhas DX, it's, well, it reuses Tan Satan's arms and legs, so you have the boost gimmick, but it's on a dual type core. It's a control core with speed hold parts, so in my opinion, I don't really like the control hold parts that much, so it's, to me, just a better control core. Kind of barrel on it if you want, but as far as the movement gimmick goes, moving forward, I don't really like, because I feel like it throws off your shot, and because this thing kind of functions better as a control type, for the most part, I don't really like that gimmick very much. Personally, I guess you can get extra power and sacrifice some of the control if you want to, but it's still a little bit awkward. Valhas looks very cool, but yeah, its gimmicks, I think, are a little bit questionable. So overall, though, that is kind of the whole DX line. I'd say overall, though, they did a pretty good job. I think that the DX line, nothing here really is a horrible miss. There's a couple bland ones, but they're not that bad. And a lot of the bland ones are just because they're like the first ones, which makes sense. So that's fine. And then there's a lot of cool ones, a lot of creative ones, and some really crazy ones like, you know, Dragogina, Colamaru Energy DX. I would say like Royal Gryphon's pretty dynamic, CC Leon and Kerpeps are pretty cool. Arrowcider's a really good control type. Like, there's a lot of cool stuff going on here, so yeah. I definitely think they stepped up their game here with DX opposed to the prototype line. It's much better overall, I would say, so yeah, I do like the Bottleman releases a lot here. They did a lot of good stuff, so overall, definitely a big fan of all these releases. Alright, now we have something actually new to Bottleman DX, that is remakes. So, the prototype line did have those 3 cores that were colored kind of like B-Daman and, you know, had the eye stickers of them, but I'm not counting, I didn't count those, they don't really work, but these 5 Bottlemen here, these are actual B-Daman remakes, so let's talk about each one. So first up here we have Bottle Phoenix DX, of course this is a remake of Fighting Phoenix using Colamaru DX as a base. It makes sense, it looks pretty nice, not my favorite, but still cool enough. Got the drive strip, you know, it's fine, I don't mind it. It exists, and I'm fine with that. So it's a beat-em-on remake, you know. Back then these were fine, I would say, because there weren't as many of them. Because I have been critical of remakes in the past, but again, don't mind them as much when there's not as many, and this was the first one, and the only one from Hosted DX, actually, so yeah, this was at the start of the line, but yeah, it was a fine release, a special release, why not, you know, it works. Moving on, we have, of course, Wyvern DX. So Wyvern DX, a pretty interesting one, actually. Came out in Random Collection Volume 2, meaning it has a dual-type core. It has a control core, well, control hold parts, but a speed core with a magazine port in the back there. Nothing really too crazy, but yeah, sure, why not. But yeah, being a remake of Wild Wyvern using Docpepion DX as a base makes sense. You got the trigger here, the one-hand grip going on. Yeah, sure, why not? It's fine. I don't mind this thing. I know Wyvern G exists, but I'm going to save that for the Godcat video to talk about some of the problems with that. But this one, as is when it came out, yeah, no problems with it. It's just a fine remake that exists. Now after this is when they started to get a lot more remakes. So in January we didn't get anything, but in February we got 3 more remakes. However, I'm going to give them a pass here, because I get why they did a lot of remakes, because it was the end of the line. They kind of finished the Bottleman run, Bottleman DX run in December. And then just kind of fill out the time until Godcat, they give us more remakes. I think that's a perfectly fine way to do it, and they give us more remakes, you know, in that kind of dead space there. So we got 3 more. First of which being Bottle Phoenix Energy DX. This is a remake of Battle Phoenix, and using, you know, Colamaru Energy DX as a base. Same thing as Colamaru Energy, same mold and everything. It looks very cool though. Yeah, it just works. You got the, you know, the arms here with the tension on the hold parts. That makes sense for this guy. The drive strip. Yeah, this thing is just a very sensible remake. So yeah. Also, well, you know, it's not really necessary for the remake and doesn't really make sense for a remake, but if you have the first one, you get out on the wings and the rubber parts on the feet, like with Colamaru Energy DX. So yeah. Has a bit of an extra feature there if you want it, so not a bad extra feature to have, actually. I don't mind that one at all, so pretty cool. Definitely like this remake quite a bit, I would say. Then we, of course, have König Kerpeps DX. This one, it's interesting, so uses Kerpeps DX as a base for a remake of König Cerberus. The Bottleman itself, it looks very cool. I like the kind of black Kerpeps. It's very, very nice, black and red. Double shot core makes sense for König Cerberus, but my problem is that König Cerberus kind of have like, you could turn the core out like a drive strip type of thing. You could, you know, turn the core, change kind of the angle of it. This thing, you don't have that. You kind of almost need like a plus type barrel or something to turn the hold parts. And I have like 2 sets of hold parts on this thing. Yeah, it's not that dynamic, so I can't really say that this thing does its job as a remake like the other ones have, but it's still okay. I get why they didn't do that. It at least has the double shot, which is the most important part. Kind of wish they maybe would have added a drive strip at the very least. But yeah, it's an okay remake, but outside of that, yeah, it does at least look very cool, but not the best, not the worst. And then we, of course, have Accel Leon DX. Very rare remake, actually, unfortunately, which doesn't really warrant it, but anyway. Aesthetically, this thing looks phenomenal. This is a great-looking Bottleman. This is a very good Leon DX recolor. I will give it that credit for sure. The problems, though. This thing is not a good Accel Leon remake. Because, yeah, it's an Accel Leon remake, you know, based on Leon DX. But Leon wasn't a full-on, you know, quadruped, didn't have, like, a full-on lion design. Like, you at least had kind of a face on it to some extent, like, kind of like the visor-looking thing on Accel Leon. And it didn't really feel like a quadruped. It doesn't really work for me. I wish they went with something else here. I don't like that they did this mold. I wish they maybe would have done, like, keep the magazine, but maybe do like a different mold. I'm not sure what I'd pick personally, but still, I just think something else would have been better than what we got here. Even if you keep the head, which I don't like that much, maybe they could have done like a sticker down here or something. I know it wouldn't look great, but still, could have maybe done that. But yeah, I think that the arms and legs needed to be different on this one. So yeah, as far as remakes go overall, though, I think that they did decently. König Kerpeps DX, Accel Leon DX, I had problems with mainly the latter, but yeah, they're cool recolors at least, but the other 3 actually are really good remakes, I would say. So, interesting idea, I think they did them fine here. Again, you got like 2 in the main line, then the other 3 were just kind of to fill in the space between DX and Godcat, which is perfectly fair. So overall, remakes I think that they did decently with. Not the best, not the worst, but they were just kind of there, fine enough. Okay, now let's talk about the actual system design here. So I will kind of talk about the prototype system and how it kind of is better or worse. So first, let's start with the cores. So first up, here's kind of just a core in its most basic form. So yeah, here the triggers are now separated, which is actually pretty interesting. I like this a lot. Building the cores are so much better now. The triggers just not being there, because the triggers just come like this. That's great. The cores, you just kind of put the whole parts in. There's no lining up the trigger to try and get it in properly. Nope, it just works. It's nice. So the front part of the cores, you got the part up here which can hold the barrel. We'll get to that later. You got the hold parts and a potential for a magazine. Yeah, the triggers, you just kind of plug them in, and you can just kind of screw them on. There you go. You're all good now. So very, very simple. As far as cores go, power type cores tend to be the most unique. They usually have some kind of gimmick to them. I guess 10 Satan's kind of the basic one, but outside of that, like Colamaru Energy, they will have the drive strip. Raidbrave's the vertical shooter. Kerpeps has like a double shot going on, so pretty unique. Aside from that, though, speed types. Oh, also, let me just grab the cap. I guess you could put that in too if you want to, but yeah. Anyway, speed types. They have a magazine port and roller hold parts, and then of course control cores. They just kind of have like these awkwardly smooth hold parts, and then like a barrel port up here. So yeah, you do have that. That's kind of how the cores work. The cores, I would say, the idea behind them, I think I get it. I think having power types kind of not have any attachments, but kind of having more dynamic cores, perfectly fine. Speed types, get magazines. Control types get barrels. That's fine. But I think that they should all have the ports, to some degree. I mentioned this before, like a year or two ago, but I think that every core should have one barrel port, one magazine port. However, there's a second slot on the back for speed types and a second slot in front for control types. Basically, this would give you access to more specialized magazines and barrels to go with speed and control types. So something like the, Aquasports magazine, that should just be a general part that anyone could use. But then something like, like the CC Land magazine, that's very dynamic, and I think something like that should require you to have both ports. Now, this would kind of have to change the design. Like, yes, you can't have the whole modular thing in that case, which I think is fine, honestly. Like, being able to stack magazines infinitely is kind of dumb anyway, I think. Same with barrels. Because, if you just stack more magazines, you're just winning more. Like, you get more capacity. I think I'd be fine giving that up instead allowing us to have better and more specialized parts. So yeah, so as far as the core designs go, I think that they are better, and at least they actually have attachment points now. It's not like the prototype line where it's like, okay, the feet can have a barrel connection. Like, that was really stupid on Skull Pistol. So the cores having it makes more sense. I like that more, but is it perfect? No. It's definitely a massive improvement though. Also now, the cores are much different. Now you actually have to have dedicated headpieces. These headpieces are, they're fine, they do their thing. I kind of did like the bottle shape to the previous ones, but I think that the connection points to how they worked weren't the best. I kind of get why they went to this design, so having a headpiece makes sense in this case. Arms, they're fine, I don't mind them. My problem actually comes with the cores. This is the one downside of the DX line, in my opinion. These connection points for the arms, they suck. I do not like them. I hated them since they came out. I said that there might be problems with, breakage or whatever. I know Godcap has been significantly worse than that. We'll talk about that when we get to Godcap, but yeah. As far as these connection points go, I don't like them. I don't like it to, push them on. I don't like prying them off. They're thin pieces of plastic. It just makes me uncomfortable to deal with. Next up, the feet. They're pretty similar to the prototype ones. They're fine. You just kind of slot them in the bottom. I wish maybe they were slightly better, but they're fine. I don't have problems with the actual system design here, so yeah. Overall, I would say aside from the arm connection points, because those are actually much better in the prototype line in my opinion, everything else upgrade from DX, or upgrade from the prototype line. DX is way better. I mainly just wish that, maybe they would have done more with the connection port, for the ports for attachments. That could have been better. But it's not like that DX isn't better than the prototype line, so it's still an improvement. Just wish, yeah, maybe it could have been a little bit better, but still, overall, I think that they did a much, much better job here for the design of the system. So, yeah, I mean, ease of use for the actual armor, kind of worse because of that, but the cores themselves, though, way, way better. Alright, now let's talk about kind of the evolution of the DX system opposed to the prototype system. So I already kind of talked about this a little bit with how I thought the system was better, but are the Bottlemen themselves, more dynamic? Did they actually do a good job here? And yes, they did. So obviously you have things like, Colamaru DX, which is quite literally just a DX version of the original Colamaru. That's not that interesting, but I'd say like the craziest things we got in the original line were like, Rising Milk and Fusion Black especially. I guess Sparking Knight and Ten Satan were kind of interesting too. The fusions, Premium Sapphire, Blend Dragon. Do we get better than that? Yeah, I'd say we do. I think things like, Colamaru Energy DX, this is pretty crazy. That's like way crazier than like Ten Satan, for example. Even some more basic ones like, Arrowcider, the mode changes, I think that's pretty dynamic. Or Kerpeps, like I kind of mentioned earlier. Blend Dragon, the whole big fusion, the main gimmick was a double shot. This thing just does it as its own Bottleman, like we didn't have, I guess we had like the big magazine of Rising Milk, but that effectively was just like a lot of extra caps, CC Land has a crazier gimmick to it, so yeah, I'd say it was more evolved in that sense. As far as fusions go, like, I could grab it here. Royal Gryphon DX, I would say, while you could debate which is better and stuff, as a fusion, this one is way more complex and dynamic than both of those were, so I would say, yeah, evolution-wise, it is better. And let me just put, this guy here, Dragogina DX. I think this guy really, just encapsulates, like, the peak of DX in terms of just what it could do. And when you look at something like this, is it an evolution to the prototype line? Is it better overall in terms of just what it was able to achieve? Yes. Because while I talk about the system itself, I didn't talk about every single part, like there's a lot more to it. Like, yeah, this core is just different than anything else, It's a multi-type, I didn't get into, like Valhas or Wyvern have multi-type cores, or like the Red Arrowcider or Blue Earth Ruler, they have multi-type cores, So, as an evolution, could it have done more? Did it do more, I guess I should say? Yes. So I think as an evolution to the prototype line, it succeeds, and again, with the just general system itself, it also was an evolution. So yeah, it did well overall, I would say, in being a successor to that line. Alright, now let's talk about something a little bit worse here. Game design. Okay, this, by the way, Colamaru Energy DX has nothing to do with this. I'm just leaving it there so there's something on the screen. But anyway, as far as game design goes, what game design? So there was like the entry set at the start of DX that you can get, had like some stuff going on, but yeah, there wasn't much else. I guess you had like the targets that came with Random Collection Volume 3, but like who cares? I would actually say the prototype line tried more. You had like the original set, had like the Switch game. That was probably more dynamic than the entry set in the DX, but then you also had like those two, challenge sets. Blast Boss was its own game. There was more going on with the prototype line. While I wouldn't say that it ever really had a good game or anything that was like worth being a main game, it tried more. DX just didn't. I don't think it's like significantly worse. You can still use like the old stuff with these if you want to. So the games, they still exist. It's just, did it really do better? I would say no. And Bottleman just in general has always struggled with game design. It's just always been lacking. It's not good. And unfortunately, yeah, DX just didn't fix it, and it didn't add anything really new. Yeah, you get the entry set, oh boy, it's just not enough. So yeah, as far as game design goes, like the prototype line, it's not good, and unlike the prototype line, it felt like they didn't even try, which really is just unfortunate. So yeah, game design definitely is bringing down DX quite a bit, I would say, overall. It was not handled the best. We'll just leave it at that. Alright, let's now get into quality control. So, as far as quality control goes for just DX as a whole, I think it was much better than the prototype line. It didn't feel like I was going to break the cores every second, although I still do not like those connection points on the arms, or for the arms, on the core rather. Those definitely could have been better for sure. I think they should have designed those better. I haven't really heard of many breaks from DX with those points, but I still don't like them. I could see those over time becoming more brittle. Even the legs, like I'm not convinced that that was like them kind of just snapping on. I don't like that either very much. Feels like you really have to pry off a lot of parts, which again I don't like. But again, I haven't really heard many breaks from DX because of this, so it's hard to really complain too much. But there have been some quality control issues, so let's just talk about this whole conglomerate here. So our Greno DX, this arm thing, it doesn't stay together very well. I've had points where it's wanting to fall off. Milkaiser DX, same thing. I've had problems with this sometimes, staying together. But the main one here is, of course, Gryphon DX. This thing, I've had these arms come off. I've had these top parts that kind of want to slide off. These caps fall off pretty easily. And this trigger, I've had these parts just kind of slide up on me very, very easily. You can just kind of tell it doesn't want to stay together that well. Royal Gryphon is kind of janky, I'm not going to lie. Wish they did better on that. Quality control is definitely lacking a bit here. But the only real big one I have that genuinely just is a problem, as I mentioned earlier, is Accel Leon DX, which is unfortunate because I actually really like this Bottleman a lot, but yeah, unfortunately, this thing, it's not the best. This is like the only big one I have, because Royal Gryphon's at least a fusion, so I kind of expected some jank with it. I don't have problems with anything else personally. I've never really had any problems. I haven't seen any widespread problems. I guess you could argue like the Aquasports magazine or like the Raidbrave magazine. Both of those you could argue that they have quality control problems by not properly fitting 3 caps in, and that third cap can just fly out or something. Also, actually grab it real quick. The Raidbrave magazine doesn't stay in well. This part is too wide. I guess you could say that's another problem here. But that's at least like a later attachment, not part of the kind of main release. But Accel Leon, this head, you just tell it doesn't stand very well. If you kind of go up enough here, you can just kind of tell it will eventually fall off. It's not hard to fix it. It's just very annoying. It's not something you're gonna run across all the time, but it happens enough to where it is still quite annoying. And I can never line this thing up to get it back on either. There we go. I got it. Okay, so. Quality control wise, DX, pretty good I would say. It's just that they did have a few issues and they never really bothered to fix them either, which is annoying. But the issues aren't horrible. I'd say compared to the prototype line, the quality control is much, much better. Again though, is it perfect? No, it isn't. But again, it's better, and overall I'd still say they did a solid enough job, so I can't complain too much. But yeah, there are just things here and there I wish that they could have done better, but, well, it could be worse. So I want to take a minute to talk about DX as a whole. So, DX, talk about all the Bottlemen, I like them, quality control, kind of debatable, the games are, quality control's fine, but yeah, the games are more debatable, kind of don't exist, but yeah. The remakes were done fine for the most part. There's a lot of stuff here. I think overall they did a pretty good job with DX. And also, one big thing is the release schedule, because the release schedule wasn't an absolute mess like it was with the prototype line. Yes, they did release the first wave in April and not give us anything till July, which sucked. But based on the bot numbers, you could tell Raidbrave, Docpepion, and Earthroller were probably supposed to be like May, June releases, but something must have happened with them. They had to be delayed till August, and then... But yeah, from then on though, since July through December, we got releases every month. They skipped January, but then February got a bunch of remakes before March heading into GodCap. So overall, I think the DX, yeah, they did a good job. They handled it much better. They kind of knew what they were doing, and I like it. I like what they did here. They did some good stuff. So yeah, it was a pretty big improvement from the prototype line. Yeah, I just think that overall DX handled itself much better. But of course, we do have to get into one a slight little problem that kind of lingers around from the prototype line. So let's get into that. Alright, the B-Daman issue. I mentioned this last time, so I'm going to keep it a little bit brief, but, looking, okay. Yeah, I'll just leave that in, that's funny. Listen, or look, whichever one you want to choose, or a combination of the words, like I just said. Anyway. Marbles work better. That's all there is to it. Marbles, look, these cores, like, the problem is, right, when you look at something like Dragogina, look at how large this thing is compared to Colamaru. Colamaru's core is already large compared to a B-Daman. B-Daman were much smaller. The cores weren't as big. The armor didn't end up being as big. So yeah, the cores are larger to accommodate caps, and that becomes a big issue when you want to have larger things. Again, Dragogina, this thing is massive. Look, like, compared to my hand, Dragogina is massive. Like, for context, right? I'm 6'7", I have large hands. This thing, like, you just see how I hold this thing. Like, okay, you don't have to go this high, but still, if you want to go from the back, like this, it's still, like, a decent distance from where my hands are resting to my thumbs. It's not horrible or anything, but it's not great. I think even, like, Kerpeps DX is also kind of an example of this, like, with a long trigger. Again, you could just tell, like, yeah, this is, like, you could tell it takes some, like, hand size to shoot these things, and if these are technically supposed to be kids' toys, I could see that being a bit of an issue. So, yeah, aside from the kind of typical problem of, you know, caps just generally being easier to use, you know, just more sensible, just, they work better. You don't have to be as specific about them. That's a problem, but again, with DX, with kind of these things becoming bigger and bigger, when you get to these large Bottlemen, they're too big, you know? Like, someone like me, I could hold them fine. I don't have a problem with holding these things, but I could see a lot of smaller people having problems with it. Even an average-sized adult male, I could still, maybe for some of these, thinking, this is kind of awkward to hold, so I can't imagine a kid trying to shoot these things with, you know, no problems. Maybe I'm overthinking it, but still, I just feel like these things are getting too big at this point. And, well, I don't mind Dragogina or something being big. I wish that maybe it was a little bit smaller, but still, like, it's fine if they want to make a big Bottleman, but the problem is when, yeah, they're already so big compared to an average B-Daman, yeah, size becomes a bit of a problem in that case, and I think that's kind of a big problem when we talk about the evolution of, you know, Bottleman, or B-Daman to Bottleman. It wasn't as big of a problem in the prototype line, because the prototype line was a lot smaller than the DX line, but here, it starts to become a bit more apparent, and I just wanted to kind of talk about that at least a little bit. And now it's time for my verdict. Was Bottleman DX good? Yes. I don't think it was perfect by any means. Like I've said before, you know, there are some quality control problems here and there. The game design is non-existent. You know, it's still kind of just worse than B-Daman in a lot of ways. You know, the remakes were handled decently. That's nice. The system design, aside from a couple issues, I think, you know, was very good. And it was a massive step up from the prototype system design. You know, DX, also just like the release schedule is much better. That was cool. And the Bottlemen themselves, I think, were great. And again, it was a good evolution to the prototype line. So was DX good? Yeah, I think that they did a lot of good things here. There's a lot of good ideas for sure. I wish they maybe could have tightened up the quality control a little bit here and there. And really just the game design need to be better. And I think that maybe they should have tried to make the arm connection points a bit better at least, because then the system is just inherently better than the prototype line. But yeah, these are definitely smaller things at least. Well, aside from game design, that one's actually a pretty big one. But for the most part, I still feel comfortable saying that Bottleman DX was good. I think it did a lot of good, and was definitely a good point for the series. And yeah, definitely knew what it was doing. So, with that said, we'll have to come back next time for Godcap, and talk about whether or not Godcap was able to kind of maintain this trajectory and kind of keep going up, or at least keep it at a relatively similar level, or did it fall off? I already know the answer to this, but I will talk about that next time, probably next month in February, because it looks like Godcap should be done. So, assuming that it is done, I'll also come back next month for that video. So anyways, that's all for now. So yeah, thanks for watching, and bye.